My name is Elias Begay. I was a sworn Navajo Nation Police Officer for 14 years. I served primarily in the Western District, covering a wide stretch of high desert, unpaved roads, grazing land, and scattered housing clusters that sit miles apart. Night shift for most of my career. Solo patrol more often than not. That was normal. Out here, isolation is not an emergency condition. It is the baseline. If you drive those roads long enough, you learn where the land feels older than the map. You also learn that some calls come in with rules already attached to them, even if dispatch does not say so out loud. We do not enter certain structures after dark. We do not retrieve property left behind in restricted zones. We do not open containers that were deliberately sealed unless a supervisor is physically present. Those rules are passed verbally. You learn them by watching who comes back and who does not. The incident with the camera started as a property recovery request. That matters. It was not evidence. It was not a crime scene. It came through tribal facilities, not criminal dispatch. The call came in during the second week of August, 2018. Late evening. No weather. Clear sky. The request was logged by name. Maintenance supervisor. Familiar voice. He said they were clearing out an old Bureau of Indian Affairs storage building scheduled for demolition. He said they found personal property that did not belong to the site. He asked for an officer to document and retrieve. That building was outside my normal patrol area. But I knew it. Concrete. No windows. Single access door. It had been locked for decades. There was an informal rule about it. You do not inventory abandoned federal storage alone. You wait until morning. That rule existed because in 2009, an officer named Paul Nez entered a similar structure during a routine check and never radioed out again. His unit was found running. Door open. Interior empty. He was declared missing. His body was never recovered. I acknowledged the call anyway. That was my first violation. Not because I was careless. Because it sounded procedural. Because property recovery feels safe. Because rules soften when paperwork is involved. I arrived just after 2100 hours. No lights inside. No vehicles nearby. The maintenance supervisor was not present. That should have stopped me. Instead, I assumed delay. Assumptions are expensive. Inside the building, everything was orderly. Shelving. Old filing cabinets. Boxes labeled with dates older than I am. Dust undisturbed. No footprints. The camera was sitting on a folding table, in the center of the room. That table had not been there the last time I inspected the site during training years earlier. It was a film camera, not digital. Plastic body. No branding I recognized. No serial number. The strap was frayed from age. It felt warm when I picked it up. That stood out. The building was cold. There was a note under it. Handwritten. It said return to owner. No name. I loved the item. I photographed it. I followed procedure. I did not open it on site. That rule exists for contaminated property. I secured it in an evidence bag and transported it back to the station. The next violation happened because of curiosity, not arrogance. Back at the station, I placed the camera in temporary holding. I filled out the form. I signed it. I was done. That should have been the end of it. But before I left, I noticed something through the clear plastic. The film advance lever had been moved recently. That meant the camera had been used. I told myself I was verifying condition. I told myself this was part of documentation. I opened the camera and removed the film canister. I did not develop it myself. That would have crossed another line. I logged it for processing through a contracted lab we use for archival media. That delay matters. Delays usually help. The results came back 3 days later. There were 24 photographs on the roll, all properly exposed, all framed deliberately. The first image showed a dirt road near my childhood home. The angle was low, as if taken from behind a fence. The second showed the exterior of my elementary school. The third showed a playground I had not seen since it was dismantled in the 90s. By the sixth photograph, I recognized myself. I was a child in the pictures. 7 or 8 years old, wearing the same jacket my mother used to make me wear, because it was too big and would last. I was playing alone, looking away from the camera, unaware. These were not family photos. The angles were wrong. The distance was wrong. Whoever took them was hiding. I checked the dates printed on the negatives. They did not match the film stock. The timestamps were handwritten on the backs of the prints. Years written in pen. 1994, 1995, 1996. The last photograph was different. It showed the interior of the storage building where the camera had been found. The folding table, the shelves, the same light angle. In the center of the frame was the camera itself, sitting exactly where I had found it. There was no reflection of the photographer. That was when I understood something important. The camera was not recording the past. I reported the anomaly to my supervisor. I followed the chain. The response was delayed, then redirected, then minimized. I was told to log the photos as unverified historical material and turn the camera over to administration. That was when my partner got involved. Officer Aaron Sosi had been on shift with me for 6 years. We grew up 2 communities apart. Our families knew each other. He saw the photos without me showing him. He recognized the locations immediately. Then he recognized himself. 2 of the photographs showed him as a child. Different years, different places, same pattern, distant, unaware, watched. That shifted the incident from anomaly to threat. We reviewed missing persons cases from the 90s. We did it quietly, off the clock. We found overlaps. Children who disappeared near locations shown in the photographs. Some recovered, some not. One name came up repeatedly. Elias Begay, my cousin. She vanished in 1997, near a dry wash not far from where one of the photos was taken. I was 12. I remembered the search. I remembered the silence afterward. The rule about involving family exists for a reason. I broke it anyway. I asked my aunt if she remembered anyone with a camera. She went quiet. Then she asked me where I had seen it. That night, Aaron did not come in for his shift. His patrol unit was found parked near a trailhead we both used as kids. Engine off. Door open. Camera sitting on the hood. No sign of struggle. No footprints leaving the vehicle. Only one set approaching. The camera was empty. No film inside. Search and rescue was activated at first light. I was not assigned. I went anyway. We followed procedure. We grid searched. We found nothing. At noon, someone found a photograph tucked under a rock near the wash. It showed Aaron, standing still, facing the camera, looking older than he should have. His expression was calm, accepting. On the back, a new year was written. That was when I understood the camera was not recording the past. It was preparing the future. After the photograph of Aaron was logged, Command reclassified his disappearance as a voluntary absence pending investigation. That is the language they used. Voluntary absence implies intent. It implies choice. It removes urgency. Search operations were scaled back after 48 hours. Resources were redirected. Weather was cited. Terrain was cited. Probability tables were cited. I did not argue. I have learned that arguing creates attention. And attention attracts interest we cannot control. The camera was placed into evidence lockup. Restricted access. Chain of custody established. I was ordered not to engage with the case outside my assigned duties. That order was justified as emotional proximity. It was also a containment attempt. I began documenting everything privately again. Not photographs. Not recordings. Handwritten notes. Dates. Times. Locations. Who had seen what. And when. Patterns matter more than proof. The first pattern was proximity. Every photograph was taken from a location where the photographer could not be easily seen. Behind fences. From arroyos. Through gaps in structures. Places a person could stand without being noticed. But also places a person would not stand for long. Without purpose. The second pattern was patience. The subject was never looking at the camera. Not once. Until Aaron. That mattered. A week after his disappearance, a woman came into the station asking to speak with an officer about old photographs. She was in her late 40s. Calm. Polite. She carried a cardboard box. Inside were loose prints. No negatives. She said she found them while cleaning out her late father's belongings. Her father had worked seasonal security for federal facilities in the area during the 90s. She thought the photos might be evidence of something inappropriate. She did not know where they were taken. She did not recognize the children. I recognized 3 of them immediately. One was Leah. Another was a boy named Michael Yazzie, who vanished in 1993. The third was a girl whose name I did not know, but whose face I recognized from a cold case board we kept in a hallway no one used anymore. All the photos shared the same framing, same distance, same angle, same sense of being watched from a place that should not exist. I asked the woman if she knew where her father took the photos. She said she did not think he took them. She said her father hated cameras. She said the box had not been there the last time she cleaned out his things. That is another rule. Objects that appear later were not missed the first time. I loved the prints. I took her statement. I did not tell her what they meant. She thanked me and left. That night, the camera returned. It was sitting on my patrol seat. When I started my shift, no signs of forced entry, no alerts, evidence lockup logs unchanged. The camera was not checked out. It was simply there, strap coiled neatly, lens cap on. I did not touch it. I closed the door and called my supervisor. He arrived 20 minutes later. He stood outside the vehicle and looked in. He did not approach. We decided together to leave it where it was until daylight. That decision followed the rule about not engaging with objects that relocate themselves after dark. In the morning, the camera was gone. Security footage from the lot showed my patrol unit untouched all night. No movement, no shadows, no interruption. The following week, the photos escalated, not in number, in content. A new role appeared in evidence processing. No intake record, no courier signature, just a sealed envelope addressed to the department. Inside were prints. No camera this time. The first image showed the interior of my childhood home. Kitchen, table, the same table my mother used until it warped from heat. The second showed my bedroom. The third showed me asleep. Adult, in my current house. That photograph was taken the night before. I reported it immediately. This time, command reacted. My house was searched. No sign of entry. No missing items. No footprints. No disturbance. I was placed on administrative leave. Not as punishment, as precaution. While on leave, I was told not to return to the station. I was told to remain reachable by phone. I was told to rest. Rest is another form of waiting. I did not rest. I began visiting locations from the photographs during daylight. Never alone. Always with a witness. Always moving. At one of the washes near where Leah disappeared, I found a flattened path through the brush that did not align with any trail. It led to a depression in the ground. Not a hole. More like a place where the land had settled inward. There were footprints around it. Child-sized. Adult-sized. All facing inward. None leading away. I did not approach the depression. I marked the coordinates. I left. That night, I dreamed of the camera for the first time. Not as an object. As a presence. Something patient. Something that did not need to hurry. Because it knew where everyone would eventually be. The second violation happened because of family. My aunt called me. Leah's mother. She said someone had left photographs on her porch. Old ones. New ones. She said Leah was in them. Older than she should have. Standing in places that no longer existed. I told her not to touch them. I told her to step away. I told her I was coming. I drove without calling it in. When I arrived, the photos were gone. Porch empty. Door closed. My aunt was sitting at her kitchen table. She looked tired, but calm. Too calm. She told me Leah was fine. She told me Leah had been watching us all these years. She told me the waiting was almost over. I did not sit down. I asked her where the photos went. She said they went back where they belonged. She asked me if I wanted to see where that was. I said no. That refusal broke something in her expression. Not anger. Disappointment. She stood up and walked into her hallway. Halfway down, she stopped and turned. She told me Leah was proud of me for following the rules now. She said the camera liked people who learned. Then she walked into a room. That should have been a bathroom. It was not there when I checked the house later. My aunt was gone. No signs of exit. No struggle. Just absence. Her disappearance was logged as a medical event. Likely confusion. Wondering. Exposure. The camera appeared again 3 days later. This time, at the edge of my property, hanging from a fence post, gently swaying. I took it inside in full daylight. With 2 witnesses present, we opened it together. Inside was a new roll of film, already exposed. The first photograph showed my aunt, standing in the depression near the wash. The second showed Leah beside her, older, calm, watching the camera. The third photograph was blank. On the back of the blank print, a year was written. It was next year. That was when I understood the camera does not just record. It selects. It chooses who will be watched, until they are ready to stop moving. And it was still choosing. After my aunt disappeared, command officially removed me from duty. Not suspended. Not terminated. Placed on indefinite administrative separation. Pending psychological evaluation. My credentials were collected. My service weapon was logged. My patrol unit was reassigned. The explanation given was concern for my well-being. The unspoken reason was proximity. People close to a pattern start to look like part of it. I was instructed to remain within jurisdiction and to report any further contact related to the camera. That instruction conflicted with another unwritten rule. When something follows you home, distance stops being protection. I complied anyway. The evaluation process took weeks. Interviews, questionnaires, controlled conversations designed to check for delusion. I answered carefully. I did not mention the camera unless asked. I did not describe the rooms. I focused on facts that could be verified. Dates, logs, physical evidence. That approach kept me from being dismissed outright. While I waited, the camera kept working. Photographs began appearing in places that had nothing to do with law enforcement. A school lost and found box, a church bulletin board, a grocery store cork wall, where people post handwritten notes, always unaddressed, always unnoticed, until someone recognized a face. I was contacted by a former classmate who worked at the chapter house. She asked if I remembered a boy named Jonah. I did. Jonah disappeared when we were 10. She said his picture had been taped to the inside of a filing cabinet. She had opened 100 times before. The photograph showed Jonah, standing at the edge of a road, facing away, waiting. On the back was written a year that had not happened yet. I told her to remove it and leave the building. She did. When facilities later checked the cabinet, the photo was gone. No tape residue. No damage. That became the new pattern. The camera no longer needed to be present. The images propagated on their own, as if the act of seeing was enough to continue the process. I tried to establish a rule set from the outside, not official, practical. If you find a photograph of yourself or someone you know, in a place it should not be, you do not keep it. You do not destroy it. You leave the area immediately and bring a witness back before re-entering. That rule worked once, maybe twice. It failed when emotion entered. A retired officer named Elias Begay contacted me directly. No relation. He had been one of the search leads during the Leah case years earlier. He said he found a photo tucked inside his Bible. He said it showed Leah, sitting beside him on a bench outside the old trading post. He said she looked older than she should. He said she was smiling. He asked me what it meant. I told him to leave the house and wait for daylight. I told him not to touch anything else. I told him I would come with someone else. He did not wait. By the time we arrived, his house was empty. No signs of struggle. No forced entry. The photograph was still on the table. Leah was not smiling anymore. That was the first time the image changed. After discovery, at this point, internal discussion shifted from missing persons to exposure events. That language came from outside consultants, brought in quietly, people who had seen similar patterns in other jurisdictions, not identical, but close enough to share vocabulary. They told us the entity behind the camera exhibited what they called anticipatory fixation. It did not hunt randomly. It selected subjects early and observed them until a threshold was reached. Then it intervened. I asked what the threshold was. They said stillness. That aligned with everything we had seen. People who waited. People who sat. People who paused when they should have moved. The camera rewarded patience. It punished urgency. That inversion is dangerous. In a culture built on response, one consultant suggested destroying the photographs, burning them, flooding them, removing the record entirely. That recommendation was tried once. In another region, it resulted in the immediate appearance of replacement images in public spaces, louder, more explicit. The camera does not like gaps. It fills them aggressively. We were running out of options. The third violation happened because of duty conflict. Despite being on leave, I was contacted by dispatch late one night. Unofficially, a junior dispatcher I had trained asked me for advice. She said a caller kept asking if it was time yet. She said the caller did not provide a location. She said the voice sounded like her grandmother. I told her to disconnect. She said she had already tried. The line stayed open. She could hear breathing. I drove to the dispatch center. That broke protocol. I knew it. I did it anyway, because she was young, and alone, and scared. When I arrived, the building was lit, but quiet. The dispatcher was sitting at her console, headset on, hands folded in her lap. She looked calm. She told me the caller said, "Waiting together made it easier." I stood behind her. I did not touch her. I told her to stand up. She said she could not yet. She said the caller was not done speaking. I unplugged the console manually. The room went silent. She began crying immediately, confused, disoriented. She asked how long she had been sitting there. The logs showed 3 hours. She thought it had been minutes. That was the first time. Direct interruption worked. We documented it carefully. We adjusted guidance. If someone appears calm, in a situation that should produce stress, you disrupt immediately. Noise, movement, physical relocation. Calm is no longer safe. The entity adapted. The next photograph showed subjects mid-movement. Walking, driving, working, no longer waiting. Those images appeared briefly, and then vanished, as if discarded. The camera was refining selection criteria. I was cleared to return to limited duty. In November, not patrol, not investigations, records review, archive management, places full of old paper, and locked cabinets, places where history settles. That assignment was not accidental. In the archives, I found references to similar cameras, going back decades, different descriptions, same function, glass plates, Polaroids, even sketches described as being too accurate to be imagined. Each time, the pattern ended the same way. A cluster of disappearances, institutional silence, then nothing. A pause lasting years, sometimes generations. That suggested another limitation. The entity does not operate continuously. It cycles. It feeds. Then it waits. I shared that finding with command. It was received poorly. The idea that patience might outlast it was not acceptable. Institutions do not plan on generational timelines. People retire. Budgets reset. Memory fades. That is another vulnerability. In December, a final photograph appeared. In the archives, no one admitted to finding it. It was simply there, on my desk. When I arrived, it showed me, standing in the archive room, looking at a shelf. I had not reached yet. The angle was behind me. I did not turn around. On the back of the photograph was written a date. It was close. That was when I understood. The camera does not predict. It schedules, and it had placed me on the list. By the time the date on the photograph passed, nothing happened. That was not relief. That was pressure. When a predicted event does not occur, you are left with two options. Either the threat failed, or it is waiting for you to misinterpret the delay. I did not celebrate. I adjusted. I stopped entering rooms alone entirely. Not offices. Not restrooms. Not archive stacks. If I needed something, I asked someone else to retrieve it. If no one was available, it waited. That slowed my work. It irritated supervisors. It kept me alive. The photograph remained on my desk for 3 days. I did not touch it. I did not move it. I documented its presence through witness statements only. No cameras. No scans. No copies. On the 4th day, it was gone. In its place was a new item. A manila folder. No label. No markings. Inside were copies of photographs I had already seen, plus some I had not. These were closer, angles tighter, faces clearer, subjects older. One photograph showed Leah standing beside a road sign that had been removed years earlier. Another showed my aunt, seated on a concrete barrier near the wash. She was not looking at the camera. She was looking past it, as if watching someone approach. The last photograph showed Aaron. He was not standing anymore. He was sitting. The chair was not one I recognized. Simple, metal frame, no padding, placed in open desert, with nothing around it. On the back of that photograph was written a word instead of a yea. Ready. I closed the folder and returned it to the desk. I did not react outwardly. Reaction is a form of confirmation. That night, someone knocked on my door. I did not answer. The knock was polite, measured. 3 taps. Pause. 3 taps. I stayed where I was, standing in the center of my living room, with all the lights on. I did not approach the door. I did not look through the window. The knock repeated twice more, and then stopped. In the morning, there were footprints on my porch. Only one set. They faced inward. None led away. I reported it. It was logged. No follow-up. At this stage, Command began discussing relocation. Not officially. Quietly. Suggestions. Offers. Early retirement. Transfers to offices off reservation land. Distance framed as care. Distance would not help. The photographs were already ahead of me. The entity escalated through familiarity. People I had not spoken to in years began reaching out. Former classmates, old co-workers, distant relatives. Each conversation followed the same structure. They would reminisce briefly. Then they would mention finding an old photo. Then they would ask if I remembered when it was taken. I told them all the same thing. Leave the photo where it is. Step outside. Bring someone back with you. Do not stay alone with it. Some listened. Some did not. A childhood friend named Elias Begay contacted me from a chapter house office. He said he found a photograph of himself as a boy, taped to the inside of a desk drawer. He laughed about it at first. He said it was probably a prank. I heard a chair move in the background. I told him to stand up. He said he just wanted to look at it more closely. The line went quiet. When facilities checked the office later, there was no photograph. Jonah was missing. The chair was still warm. That loss changed how I spoke to people. Calm instruction was no longer enough. I began telling them directly that waiting could kill them. Some believed me. Some thought I was unstable. I was removed from records review and reassigned again, this time to community outreach, public meetings, town halls, cultural events, spaces filled with people. That should have been safer. It was not. The entity adapted to crowds. by using consensus. It did not isolate individuals anymore. It influenced group behavior. At a community meeting in late winter, a series of photographs were placed anonymously on a table near the entrance. They showed children from different families, different years, different locations, all waiting. No one touched them at first. People gathered, talked, speculated. That delay was enough. A woman sat down to steady herself. Then another. Then another. I intervened immediately. I told everyone to stand. I moved the table. I created noise. I broke the moment. 2 elders refused to stand. They said they were tired. They said they had lived long enough. They said waiting felt familiar. Both passed away quietly. Within the month, no cause found. The entity had learned to leverage resignation. Around this time, I received a call from a number I did not recognize. I answered because I was expecting a supervisor. The voice on the line was Elias. Not a recording, not an echo, a live voice. Calm, adult. She said she wanted me to stop interfering. She said the camera was not hurting anyone. She said it was helping people understand when it was time to stop running. I did not respond. She said Aaron was comfortable. She said my aunt was no longer afraid. She said they were together. She asked if I was tired. I hung up. The call did not disconnect immediately. I could hear breathing. For several seconds after, I documented the call. It was flagged as undetermined source. No location data. No routing information. From that point on, the photographs began appearing, with audio attached. Short clips. A few seconds. No dialogue. Just ambient sound. Wind. Fabric shifting. The scrape of metal. On concrete. Always the sound of a chair being adjusted. We attempted a coordinated response. Multi-agency. Cultural advisors included. We tried disrupting environments associated with stillness. Removed seating from public buildings. Installed standing desks. Limited waiting areas. Complaints surged. Accessibility concerns. Legal issues. We adjusted. Compromised. The entity exploited every compromise. At a medical clinic, patients were encouraged to wait outside. Someone placed chairs under a tree. Those chairs were not clinic property. No one admitted to bringing them. 3 patients sat down. 1 did not get back up. The limitation we had relied on 4 months failed shortly after. We had believed the camera required solitude, that it could not complete the process if someone else was present. That assumption was incomplete. It cannot isolate without permission, but permission does not have to be individual. It can be collective. If a group agrees to wait together, it does not need to separate them. That realization came too late to prevent the next loss. My supervisor, a man with 20 years on, called me into his office. He closed the door. Out of habit, I did not sit. He asked me to. I told him I would stand. He smiled and said I was being dramatic. He showed me a photograph. It was of his son, sitting on a school bus, taken from outside. He said he needed my help understanding it. He said he trusted me. I told him to leave the office. He said we would talk. For just a minute. He sat down. When the door opened later, he was alone. Chair tipped slightly forward, hands resting on his knees. No pulse. That was the moment. The institution fractured completely. Policies stopped updating. Memos stopped circulating. People stopped correcting each other. Everyone began waiting for someone else to say the next thing out loud. That silence created room. Not metaphorically, practically. After my supervisor died, the department stopped pretending. There was a center to hold on to. Authority did not collapse all at once. It thinned. Decisions were delayed. Responsibility diffused. Everyone waited for someone else to say the next thing out loud. That silence created room. Not metaphorically, practically. I was not reassigned again because there was nowhere left. to move me. Every space already felt compromised. Instead, I was told to remain available, consult as needed, do not initiate contact, unless asked. That instruction placed me in a familiar position, waiting. I refused it in small ways. I stayed moving. I drove routes that had no reason to be driven. I checked on people without logging it. I kept conversations short. I did not sit. The camera returned in early spring, not physically, through replication. A school counselor called me directly. She said a student brought in a photograph found in his backpack. It did not belong to him. The photograph showed the student sitting at his kitchen table. He was older in the photo. His hands were folded. He was not looking at the camera. On the back was written a single word: soon. The counselor said the student had not been himself since finding it. He asked repeatedly if he could stay in her office during lunch. He said it felt quiet there. He said it helped him think. I told her to keep him standing, to move him into open spaces, to involve other students. Noise mattered. Witness mattered. She did not believe me at first. She believed me when the boy tried to sit down on the floor and became agitated. When she stopped him, that was a narrow prevention. It did not feel like victory. It felt like borrowing time. The consultants returned with updated language. They stopped calling it an entity. They called it a process. Processes can be managed. Entities cannot. That shift was comforting to people who needed to believe. Systems still applied. They proposed a public messaging campaign. Education framed as safety, encouraging movement, discouraging isolation, avoiding quiet spaces alone. The campaign failed. In the ways all campaigns fail. People adapted just enough to feel compliant. They stood while waiting, but leaned. They paced briefly, and then stopped. They sat together. Together felt safer. The camera adjusted again. New photographs began showing pairs, families, groups, always seated, always calm. One image circulated briefly, through internal channels, before being scrubbed. It showed a council meeting. From above, everyone seated, everyone attentive. The angle was impossible. The date on the back was the following month. That meeting never happened. Instead, 3 members resigned within weeks, citing health. One passed away quietly. One moved away, without explanation. One began insisting meetings be conducted standing only. The institution began contorting itself to avoid stillness. That contortion created new vulnerabilities. Physical exhaustion, frustration, errors. A line worker collapsed from heat after refusing to take a break. A dispatcher fainted after standing through an entire shift. People began asking whether the cure was worse than the threat. That question is another opening. I was contacted by an elder late one evening, not through official channels, through family. She asked me to come sit with her. She said she was tired. She said she wanted company. I went with another person. I did not sit. She laughed gently at that. She said standing all the time was no way to live. She said her parents had waited their whole lives for things to change, and they never did. She said maybe waiting was just part of who we are. She asked me if I was afraid of sitting because of the camera, or because I was afraid to stop moving long enough to feel everything I had lost. That question landed harder than any photograph. I stayed with her while standing. We talked. She did not ask me to sit again. When I left, she hugged me. That contact mattered. Physical presence. Without stillness. That might be another limitation. Weeks passed. Without incident. That lull frightened me. During the lull, people relaxed. People began scheduling standing meetings. That ended early, so everyone could sit afterward. They treated movement like a task to complete, instead of a condition to maintain. The process adjusted accordingly. The first large-scale incident, after that shift, did not involve disappearance. It involved compliance. At a regional office, employees were instructed to remain at their desks during a systems outage. No one wanted confusion. In the hallways, people sat. They waited. They trusted procedure. When the outage ended, 6 hours later, no one stood up. They were alive, responsive, calm. They followed instructions perfectly. They just did not initiate movement on their own. Anymore. Medical could not explain it. Neurological scans were clean. Muscle response intact. They simply said. They felt no urgency. Those employees were not counted as victims. They were reassigned, accommodated, their productivity metrics adjusted. That was when I realized the process no longer needed the camera to remove people from the world. It only needed to remove their momentum. I began hearing from outside the region, not officially, quiet messages, people asking if what they were seeing matched what I had seen. Cameras, photos, chairs, rooms that felt too calm, different cultures, different landscapes, same pattern, older than us, wider than us. The limitation we had relied on for the longest time still held, but only barely. The process cannot force choice. It cannot make you sit. It can only make sitting feel reasonable. That is why this confession exists, because reason is more dangerous than fear. I stopped attending meetings entirely. I communicated while walking. I declined conversations that required sitting. People joked about it at first. Then they stopped inviting me. Isolation followed. That is a cost. It is also a defense. The last photograph I ever saw appeared without context. It was taped to the inside of my front door. It showed an empty chair, not a place, not a person, just a chair. On the back was written, no date, no word, just a mark, like a period, at the end of a sentence. I did not remove it. I did not destroy it. I opened the door and stepped outside and left it behind. When I returned later, it was gone. That was not escalation. That was confirmation. The process does not need to show you yourself. Once you understand what it wants. I have not heard Leah's voice again. I have not heard Aaron. I have not heard my aunt. That silence is not mercy. It is efficiency. People who wait do not need reminders. My father still lives alone. He stands when he talks to me. I see the effort in it now. The cost we do not discuss. The photograph again. We do not need to. I am tired. In ways sleep does not touch. That matters, because fatigue is the final pressure point. I am not recording this as a warning, because warnings assume prevention. I am recording this as instruction, because delay is still possible if you work in law enforcement, emergency services, utilities, infrastructure, healthcare, education, or any system that asks people to wait. You are already within the process. You cannot remove it. You can only slow it. Here are the rules. As they exist now, they are not complete. They will not save everyone. They may not save you. Do not sit alone in quiet spaces. Do not encourage others to wait without purpose. Do not design comfort without exits. Do not trust calm when urgency is appropriate. Do not let stillness become a reward. If you find a photograph that should not exist, leave the area and bring someone back with you. Do not examine it alone. Do not keep it. Do not destroy it. If someone tells you waiting feels easier than moving, believe them and interrupt immediately. If a space feels too peaceful, change it. Noise, light, movement, presence. Most importantly, if you feel yourself thinking that sitting for just a moment would help you understand everything more clearly, recognize that thought for what it is. It is not rest. It is an invitation I work in places where rules exist, not to prevent accidents, but to contain something that preys on human behavior. Those rules were never meant to win, only to hold the line long enough for people to choose movement over comfort. I am still choosing. I do not know how long that will be possible. If you are listening to this while seated, stand up now. If you are alone, call someone and keep moving while you talk. If you are tired, understand. That is the point. This confession comes too late to stop what has already started. It comes early enough to remind you that waiting is not neutral. It is how this ends.